Well, I have to say, I am so excited because I'm talking to somebody who was pretty conscientious by the time she was 7 years old. Hey, when I was 7 years old, I was going down to the creek looking for pollywogs. That's what I did. Lizards and pollywogs. I had a fetish for them. I don't know why. But my guest today is Helene, and she has been a longtime vegan plant-based enthusiast. However, she did take a hiatus for a period of time, and she's going to tell us all about that today. So, Helene, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here. I'm a huge advocate for plant-based living and plant-based eating, not only for ourselves, but for the planet.
Well, and obviously it agrees with you. You have a glow about you. You have really clear skin, which is something I notice about probably 99.9% of the people that I interviewed for my show. People have a glow that otherwise they wouldn't have if they were consuming meat products. So give us a background on how you came to be a plant-based enthusiast. Tell us about your hiatus, and then let's move into what's going on now with your life.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. When I was a little girl, I had a lot of health complications. I was diagnosed with osteomyelitis, but they thought it was leukemia. So I was in and out of oncology wards, actually, from around the whole year of age 7. My white blood cell count was off the charts, and we were terrified. We thought that, I was going to have to go through chemotherapy and I might not live. But after the bone marrow biopsy, luckily I didn't have it. I had this rare bone infection. So I had a catheter and intravenous antibiotics for a year. But the whole thing took about 3 years, start to finish. So I was laid up out of school, completely jeopardized health. I mean, I just, I couldn't be a kid, like most 7-year-olds. And I just had an aversion to meat. My mom loved meat. So she made a lot of pork, a lot of beef. And I never it made me feel sick. And so I just remember coming home one day and I said, Mom, I'm not eating meat anymore. It makes me feel sick every time I eat it. And she said, okay, with one caveat. She said, you have to eat crabs. And I was like, Mom, but I don't really like crabs either. Well, our family was in the crab business. We come from the Phillips family from Eastern Shore. It's my mom's side of the family. And I said, well, I'm not. She's like, well, I'm sorry, we'd have to disown you if you didn't eat crabs. Of course, I just avoided the crab experiences because they're relatively easy to avoid. But that was kind of our conversation, the long and short of it. But I was vegetarian for many years as I was trying to uncover the layers of health. And actually, it was my poor skin that led me to go deeper and deeper on my journey. I had terrible acne and I was a Ford model for some time. Mm-hmm. And Booker said to me, you're just going to have to work on your skin because we can't really help you. And so it was dairy. Dairy was the first thing I cut out. And, every step of the way, as we all do on our journey to health, we get veils of truth unveiled to us. And so it was my skin that was completely cleared up with the lack of dairy and the cleaning up of the diet. There's so much more to that story than that. But the 10-year hiatus was when I moved to Europe. And what was shocking was that I had dry beef because I was, I met a new boy who ended up becoming my husband. Mm-hmm. And flew back from Switzerland, which is where I was and where I had the dry beef. And I was rushed to the hospital with an extreme kidney infection. And it was, antibiotics weren't working. Nothing was working. I was I was having practically kidney failure. It was a very, very scary experience. And that's how much my body rejected the meat.
That's incredible. So your body told you from an early age, this is not what you need to be doing. And, I loved what you said about the veils of truth are revealed and they're lifted. Because I know myself in the time that I first started plant-based because I wasn't going to be a crazy vegan. Now I'm a crazy vegan, it kind of comes with the territory. But I've learned so much. And I find that the further I go into this, the more, what's the word, impatient. And there's a lot of people who are very rigid in the way that they go about being plant-based and vegan. And they expect, oh, now that I know it, everybody should know it. And I had a man saying this the other day. He was so upset with people who haven't come full circle into the vegan plant-based lifestyle. I said, wait a minute. I was 64 when I went plant-based. How can I possibly expect other people to get it any sooner than me? So speak to us about that whole thing of the veils of truth. Now, you for 10 years, you were not 100% vegan plant-based. Then you decided to go back to that. When was it you decided to go back and why?
Well, I had a diagnosis. I was pre-diabetic and I was really scared. I thought, I'm such a healthy person. How could my numbers in my blood work, which never lie, be showing that I'm pre-diabetic? And I said, okay, this is my last shot for me. I was like, because I heard from my doctor that I should go on a paleo-like diet. And I was like, well, I've never really tried the paleo. I might as well. But I did, I thought it's the last shot for me. I'm going to give this one last try. And I did. And I was just mortified at the way my body smelled, at how sluggish my colon was. My stool was, just really smelly. And it just felt horrible. And I, again, couldn't stand the smell of my body. My body odor just made me feel just disgusting. And so it didn't work either. So I got the blood work done again 6 months later. And I was like, well, I'm not going to do this. I mean, it can't be good. And then I started to really, commit to not vegetarian, but, full blown vegan. And that was about 7 years ago. And before the 10-year hiatus, I was, going back between vegetarian and vegan too. But this time I was like all in. I'm like, all in, because, this is the truth. And, how do you become healthy as a vegan? Because there's so many unhealthy vegans. It's so easy to get sick being a vegan. It's so easy to get sick not being a vegan, but you've really got to know your stuff. I have a bachelor's and a master's degree in nutrition. So luckily I had some, good quality information to move forward with. I wasn't going to be the vegan that was going to be on, French fries and vegan ice cream.
I just had that conversation with a group of lady friends of mine. We used to run a lot together pre-pandemic, and they were talking about different diets. There's a podcast show that talks about all the different diets. And I said, well, there's a huge difference between plant-based and vegan. And to me, the ideal is being a plant-based vegan combined, because as long as you have a balanced diet, and the whole nutrition side of it is so important, because there are some very, very unhealthy vegans. And now I know you have a three-prong approach to what you teach people and what you work with your clients on. And obviously you're very healthy today. You look great. You're vibrant. But something you brought up, which is interesting, because I don't talk about poop a lot, but the whole thing of body odor and consistency in your bowels and all that, that's one thing that will change when you're eating a really healthy diet. Is like when you have all that meat in your body that's just petrified meat, and it's in there rotting, that's got to come out somewhere. And people who are heavy meat eaters, they stink. I mean, that's the bottom line. And so that was one change that I noticed too, is that the body odor changed, and the consistency, and it was actually, I can actually almost set my clock by when I have my bowel movements now, which is really bizarre that I'm talking about this on my show. But I love it. I love it. And
it's important. It's like the pillar of health.
Well, one of my motivators, and I rarely talk about this, but I'm very high risk for colon cancer. I've had precancerous polyps found in me, and they took care of it. And, my diet's gotten healthier and healthier. But I had somebody asking me the other day, actually, our handyman, he goes, why are you such an advocate for this plant-based eating? I said, because if I don't, I put my health at risk, bottom line. And as a person who's high risk for colon cancer, why would I not do everything possible? So talk to us, if you will, Helene, about the three-prong approach that you use. It has to do with nutrition, spirituality. There's quite a bit to what you do.
Yeah. Well, over the years, I've really sought to find answers for health, and the veils have been becoming unlayered as it's revealed itself to me. And I am certain at this point, and now I've developed enough programming for healthy lifestyles for different organizations, universities, and institutes, that I am certain that the three-pronged approach is the way to go. Because the thing is, you can never outrun your fork. No matter how much you focus on your food, just focusing on your food is going to have its limits. It's so important. It's so fundamental to our health and well-being, especially because, you've got to deal with your gut, you've got to deal with your health, and the matter makes us, right? So whatever we're eating is becoming matter, and it matters what we eat. And then the second pillar is about embodiment or exercise. I know you're an avid runner. For me, if a day goes by and I haven't exercised, I feel like a huge something is missing. I mean, it's almost like you've skipped a meal. It's so important to exercise. For me, you can't out-exercise. You can't outrun your fork. So only exercise also isn't going to work. You've got to focus on nutrition and exercise. Just doing one or two of those things, one of those two things is not really going to get you the freedom and the health that we're born to have. And then the mindset piece is so important. And you can call it spirituality. I call it spirituality, but it's really mindset. It's like if you're eating kale all day, it doesn't really matter if you're still guilty about it. It's not really going to help you. Your mindset is so key. Your way of being while you're doing. So if you're just doing exercise to check it off your list, it's really not going to be as effective as if you bring your whole self to it and you get really into your conversation with your gals, or you get really into your music, or you're really into nature. Like you've really got to immerse yourself, in the exercise, for example, your mindset about your nutrition. Are you doing this because you want to be a vegan and call yourself a vegan, which is ego-based? Or are you doing this because you know what's right for your body, right? So the mindset piece is what brings it all together and then infuses it all with joy, ultimately. And it's important because the mindset piece also demands that we deal with our shit. Now that we're talking about poop.
Literally poop, yep.
I mean, you got to deal with it both figuratively and literally. And if
Absolutely.
you don't, you're not going to get to be a happy, healthy person. I mean, that's matter of fact, what I've figured out over the last 30 years that I have searched for answers across the globe. I mean, I literally lived in Europe for 10 years. I studied food as medicine in all these different cultures, from China to Germany to Switzerland to France. I have educated thousands of people in over 60 countries on how to recover their health and restore their health and reverse disease, chronic disease, such as cancer, diabetes, cardiovascular disease. And I come from a family of compulsive eaters. I mean, I grew up going to OA meetings. My first Weight Watchers meeting was at age 5.
Oh my gosh.
I'm so in this. It's like the air I breathe.
That's incredible. Well, I want to remind people that this is Kathleen Gage with Plant-Based Eating for Health podcast show, and I'm talking with Helene of Jennifer Helene. And Helene, how can people get in touch with you?
Well, if you'd like to get in touch with me, I'd love to offer you a gift. There's a free 7-day lifestyle plan, because again, it's not just about food, even though it's mostly recipes, folks. I'll tell you some delicious plant-based recipes that are mostly raw, vegan, plant-based deliciousness. So go ahead and go to jennifer-helene.com. That's Jennifer-Helene, HELENE.com. And you'll be prompted to sign up for the free 7-day lifestyle plan. And it's just that every day we have to be bringing in and infusing our life with these 3 elements. And the lifestyle plan guides you through it, and also gives you some.
And we'll make sure that's in the show notes. Now, I want to talk about the 3-prong approach that you have. I've been taking notes here, feverishly taking notes, and you talk about nutrition, exercise, and mindset. Okay, so let's say that somebody is kind of sitting on the fence and they're saying, okay, I can't keep living the way I've been living. I'm tired of feeling so sluggish. I'm tired of carrying this excess weight around. My mindset is terrible. I'm depressed all the time. If they had to pick one of the 3, whether it be nutrition, exercise, or mindset, which should they start with, or which would benefit them to start with? And then what's the process that you would recommend they go through so that they could really get a sense of this stuff does work?
Yeah, that's a great question, Kathleen, because I think you just described where most people are today. Everyone's put on 15, 20 pounds. It's the number one concern that I read recently is for at least Americans, if not globally. And I would say, based on my expertise, nutrition would be the first place I would look, because unless you get the chemicals, especially the flour and the sugar and the alcohol and the nicotine and any chemicals like herbicides, pesticides, fungicides. So if you can eradicate those things from your life, which actually takes effort these days, you actually have to go out of your way to avoid flour and sugar and chemicals. It's just a reality that we live in.
Right.
So going organic would be a first step, just getting those chemicals out, and then reducing your intake of flour and sugar and alcohol. Like those things those are the first orders of business. Go organic and get rid of those stimulants, because those are going to kind of get your biology, your physiology, your cellular health back on track. And so once you can kind of go through that detox, and then eat more vegetables.
Right.
Have vegetables take up more space on your plate. Find recipes that you love. And I think cauliflower is a great transition food. Squash, my absolute favorite transition food. Not even transition food. It's my favorite food. I love squash. I eat it. I make pasta out of it. I make everything imaginable out of it. Soup, you know, you name it. I'm like a squash fiend. I mean, I just can't ever keep enough squash in my kitchen because it's so satisfying. You know, like people who love bread, go to squash. You know, always find
okay.
things you love. And so really nutrition would be the place I'd start because it resets your mind. You can't even think right. If you're totally in that addiction cycle of I need more sugar, I need more coffee.
Absolutely. You know, I want to say that recently, unfortunately, we've been one more time having mass shootings, and my heart breaks for the people that are experiencing that. And I think all of us are going through some level of PTSD where it's like, whoa, what if I go to the grocery store? Somebody said to me, why do you think this is happening? And I said, you know, I'm going to tell you something that you probably are going to say, oh, here you go again. It's the food. It's the food. It's the food. When you're putting in your body the energy of animals that are having pain and suffering and fear and anxiety, you're taking that on when you're putting toxins in your body. And so, you know, I think so many of the world problems quite seriously could be solved if people would become more aware of what they're consuming at what level. I had somebody recently say, well, I look at where my meat is sourced from. It's like you're putting an animal into your body. I didn't want to say that. I said, baby steps, good for you. Let's, you know, because you got to meet people where they're at. And if we try to jam it down people's throats, they're not going to listen. And so it's really living the life that they would say, oh, I want to be that energetic. I want to be that vibrant. I want to have that kind of an even keel. You said something about how this has been a topic of conversation for a lot of people. Well, it's because of the pandemic and the shutdown, I gained that 15 pounds. And I've heard so many of these conversations, and I always say, I didn't. I haven't gained the weight. And they're like, well, you're lucky. It's like, no, I'm vegan, plant-based, you know, and that's when I really want to take advantage of the opportunity to educate people if they're willing to listen. You also talked about getting the alcohol out of your system, the sugar, the wheat, all of that. How much does alcohol play into this whole scenario? Because myself, I've been sober 37 years. I actually got sober in Sonoma County back in what year was it? 1983. I quit alcohol in 83. I quit drugs, all because people would say, what's your drug of choice? What do you have? That was my drug of choice. And I've given all of that up, but game changer. But again, it's the veils being lifted. So how much does alcohol play into this? How much does, the sugar, all of this?
Alcohol is huge, and alcohol is sugar. Listen, I'm going to level with you. We're all in recovery.
Yeah.
I believe that we're all in recovery, and, you know, having food be an addiction from a young age for me and my mother, you know, it's almost easier to have an addiction to alcohol because you can just leave the alcohol, but food, you got to eat it every day, all day. So it's much more serious, I believe, addiction than any other addiction. And it's a relationship, just like anything else. And so anything that we're attached to, it's a relationship. And alcohol will weaken your immune system. It will steal your energy. It will age you prematurely. It will keep you on a high and low. It will cause more depression. I just can't think of any benefit of drinking alcohol, of course, except for the resveratrol that they hype with the red wine. But there are lots of other ways to get resveratrol. Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about mindset, because I think that's a place where people really need some guidance. Myself, I have a morning protocol, and I know when I don't get up early enough to give myself the full time, I can tell in my day. One is I do yoga for anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes. Then I do stretching. Then I read something inspirational. I journal, I meditate. Then I go on a run. This morning, it was 38 degrees when I went out on my run. And there's that part of my mind that says, you know, do you really need to do it? You ran yesterday. Why today? You know, it was 40 degrees yesterday. So, you know, all of that really plays into my mindset. How can people get started doing something? Well, first of all, let me ask you this. What do you do to keep your mindset where it needs to be? And how do you guide people in your business when you're working with clients? How do you guide them
to have a better mindset?
Yeah, great question. And I love the vignettes because I can really relate. So if in my own life or my own mindset, I am a woman of faith. I do believe in a higher power. And so I do attribute my mindset to that. Really. I think that, surrendering to a higher power for me is really where it's at. That's not always how I work with my clients though, because not everyone's ready for that. Not ready. Not everyone's interested in that conversation. It's just not where they are, and that's fine. It's all good. But I have to say that's my secret, and I also was raised in a very loving home. So I do really feel way ahead because of that. Lost my mother though at 59. Third cause of death was severe obesity. So this is a cause for me. This is more than just, you should eat plant-based. No, this is like a mission, because my goodness, if I could have helped her, now I want to help as many people as I can because of her. Bless her heart. But my clients, I have to say, we have to be really honest with ourselves. And it's difficult to be honest with ourselves. It's really hard to see ourselves clearly. And that's why it's so valuable to have a group of women like you do to run with, who can be honest with you, not because they want to be better than you, but be honest with you because they really care and love about you. So it's very important to have people around you who can reflect back to you from a place of love and care and kindness, what's really going on. And at some point we develop the ability to see ourselves honestly and say, you know what, this is a little off, right? And usually it shows up for us. The honesty can show up for us like something's not working. Like you are in a long fight with your partner. You are having problems with your children. You're having health problems. Life will reflect back to you the problems. But if you want to nip them in the bud, then you can learn to be honest with yourself, develop that discernment, which is a big part of the yoga practice, is developing discernment to be able to see yourself honestly. So that's something that I've developed for myself, and also surround myself with people who can lovingly reflect back to me. Helene, this doesn't sound like you, or this, what's really going on here? Because I don't think this is about the time. I think actually something else is going on, or I think your commitment might be wavering, not because they want to win, but because I'm actually not showing up all me, and there's something in the way. So what I'm getting at is identifying where we're resisting ourselves, where we're resisting our greatness, where we're resisting life. And then going in there and excavating a bit, getting curious about not attaching to a story, but looking at the story and then accepting it, loving it, and then letting it go, so that we can move forward. So the mindset thing it doesn't have to be a mind game. But there are a lot of different ways to fine tune your mindset to get back on track, because it's not as simple as an affirmation. It's just not. I am peace. I am love. I can do it. It's way more than that. Like we really have to go in. And we don't want to dwell on the negativity, but it's important to go and look at what's really going on from an honest, loving perspective, and then commit to shifting it, and look at the payoffs and all the good stuff that'll come from that.
Excellent. Excellent. And again, I want to remind people that this is Kathleen Gage with Plant-Based Eating for Health. And I am talking with Helene, who is with Jennifer-Helene.com. You can go there, access a wonderful, wonderful 7-day process. I encourage you to go ahead and download it. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe, hit the like button and the bell notification. If you're listening on one of the audio platforms, go ahead and review this and also like it. That helps it to get out into cyberspace. It's interesting because what I have found, Helene, is that a lot of people do come to this way of life, one, for health reasons. Most will stay for the animals. I know myself, I came for health, stayed for the animals. Even though I was doing animal rescue before that time, I didn't connect the dots of like, here I'm rescuing animals, but I'm eating them. It's like, okay, talk about a disconnect. And it's allowed me to be much more conscious about what I'm doing. But many of us have had parents who had severe illnesses. My father had brain and lung cancer. He was diagnosed 4 weeks later. He passed away. My mother, she had health problems most of her life. And I look back on that time period and I think, if she would have had different tools, maybe she could have done it differently. And so for me, it's like you, I want to help educate as many people as possible. And again, what do you see coming in the future for the movement of plant-based living, veganism, and all of that? Because the industry is exploding. I mean, there's a lot of different companies that are startups. They're getting angel funding, they're getting equity funding, and yet not all of them that call themselves plant-based are vegan. There's companies that they actually test on animals and they're plant-based, and people get confused around that. So for you, what do you see your role being as we move forward, and what do you see happening within the industry?
Thank you. Great question. Well, I love that it's so popular because it's becoming way more convenient to be vegan.
Oh, yeah.
It's so nice.
Oh, you're a vegan too? Okay.
So great. I mean, I remember back in the day when I was learning French in Paris, I'd have a little guide, and I'd walk around trying to find these little organic restaurants, and then you get there and it says, back in September, and you're like, oh my gosh, it was really hard to find vegan stuff. What I would like to see in my role in it is definitely about education. Right now, I'm just finishing up level 2 Culinary Institute. I've created a vegan, plant-based, living foods healing diet with the Hippocrates Health Institute. So I
nice.
Direct and produced that. So that's available for everyone. I think it's $397 for level 1. And that teaches you the basics of the Hippocrates diet and lifestyle. And it's a very affordable way to get your health like skyrocketed as a vegan. It is it is amazing. They've been reversing disease for 60 years successfully on this diet. So I think it's teaching. For me, it's all about teaching people, empowering people that healthy food tastes great. Vegan food especially tastes great, and the options are endless. People think it's like so limited, and it's like, oh my gosh. And I can't even see it because I'm such a wellspring of ideas. So I just want to keep sharing those ideas because I love food. And I want to share that love, and I want people to share that love with their families and their communities because there's just so much abundance. And people come to my house. I used to have this thing called vegasms, and we'd all get together, women only, and we would cook together and share ideas. And the food was amazing. We'd sit down at the table pre-COVID, and everyone would take a bite and then just make all these lovely oohs and ahs and sounds.
I love it. I love it. I
would love to see more community. I'd love to see people in their kitchens making homemade food because plant-based is great, folks. Vegan is even better, but prepackaged foods are not that great for you.
Absolutely.
So I'd love to see people get in their kitchens and learning how to make mayo, learning how to make vegan cheeses made out of nuts and seeds, learning how to, really heal their bodies and empowered with the knowledge on how to do that.
I love that. And I love the idea of getting a group of people together, and when all the restrictions are lifted, we can do that again. And, just getting a group of friends together, sharing recipes and exchanging recipes. So I think that's a great idea. Now, let's say somebody is just starting out and their kitchen has a lot of stuff in it that probably isn't going to support them in a really healthy diet. What would you recommend that they do in their kitchen to actually create a real safe space for themselves?
That's a really good question. I think no one wants to throw food away. But you kind of need to. You need to give it away to the homeless shelters. You need to take it to the church. If your food isn't giving you energy, it's taking energy. And we need our energy to heal and to grow and to become better people. White flour, white sugar, and chemicals are not going to be giving you energy. And I know that it can taste good, but your taste buds will change. Let me tell you, your taste buds will change. I was on MasterChef a few years ago, Fox TV, and there as a vegan advocate. And it was tricky because Walmart was, promoting steak that year as their advertiser. But, it was shocking. It was really shocking, what was happening on set and the chefs and, their commitment to meat. It's really important to clean your freezers out, important to clean your cupboards out, important to fill your life and take the time that it requires to find things you love. And I know it's hard to change. And I know it can be expensive to try new things you don't like, but your life depends on it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you're right. The taste buds do change because I used to be a major sugarholic, and I would go buy boxes of donuts and I would plan out, okay, over the next hour, I'm going to eat donut 1, donut 2. By the hour, I had eaten the whole box. And if anybody dared to take one donut, I was so upset that I would go get another box of donuts. I mean, talk about addictive personality. And at that point, I was probably about 55 pounds heavier than I am right now. And my lifestyle reflected reflected my weight or my weight reflected my lifestyle. So in closing, what are your final thoughts for people? And again, Helene, I want to thank you so much for being on the show. And I want to remind people, go to Jennifer-Helene. We'll put the link in the show notes so you can have access to Helene's 7-day program. It's absolutely free and it will be a life changer for you. So in closing, what are your final thoughts?
I just want to remind people how important it is to pay attention to nature, the nature outside, right? Outside your windows, and also in your body, and how they're one in the same. And that nature cycles are so important to honor. So finding out what foods are local and eating foods as close to their source. If I could leave you with one thing, is have food from nature. Food as nature intended it in its whole food form, and especially as many colors as you can get in, because we're entering into a season, where we've got an abundance of opportunity and options, and we just have to open our eyes and start to see clearly all the options available to us and have the courage to change and try something new.
Outstanding. Well, Helene, thank you so much. I wish you the very best. And this is Kathleen Gage with Plant-Based Eating for Health podcast show. Go out, eat healthy, live vibrantly.
Thank you for your commitment to an ethical life through plant-based food choices. The kind of choices that are kind to your body, the environment, and most of all, animals. Be sure to leave a review and rating of the Plant-Based Eating for Health podcast show.